Truth or myth? People are terrible at supervising automation. This one's true. People are terrible at supervising automation. We've known this for decades. And what's the root cause of this? Well, there's automation bias and complacency, and there's sort of a package of effects that all come together. Automation bias is when people tend to overtrust automated decision making. This isn't just about cars, this is everywhere. People have this feeling that, well, if the computer said it or the machine said it, I believe that more than I believe a person. Combine that with automation complacency, which is inattention to potential malfunctions. If you're driving along and the car goes mile after mile after mile steering itself on the road, or you're doing some other task and the computer gets it right and gets it right and gets it right, it's really hard to keep paying attention, and it's very easy, oh so easy to get distracted into something else, figuring, well, if something goes wrong, I'll notice. I can just check my emails. It'll be fine. I have one hand on the wheel. I'm looking at the road. It'll be fine. And it's not fine. What happens is that your response time degrades, your ability to notice things degrades. But this is not making you a bad person. It makes you a human. All humans have this issue. It can be compensated to some degree with training and monitoring, but it's an inherent human quality. So any designer that ignores the potential for automation complacency is basically denying your humanity as a user. This is what people do. They become complacent. And the challenge for safety is to design systems that even though that truth exists, they still remain safe. Another skill issue that we don't hear about as much, but is very much a thing in aviation, is skill degradation. If you turn on automation and rely on automation, you get less practice at the skill and you become worse at it. This can be a real issue if the only time you intervene is when there's a crisis and your skills are bad because you haven't been actually driving, the car's been driving for you, and then thousands of miles later, all of a sudden you need to be at your best possible driving performance with no notice and no practice. That's not going to turn out well. So these are the challenges for increasing the amount of automation in driving and still remaining safe. The National Transportation Safety Board has some recommendations. These came out of a crash in 2016, a fatality in Williston, Florida, where a car using automated steering underran a tractor-trailer, killing the driver. And back in 2016, they said, there are two real issues here relevant to automation complacency. The first is that manufacturers should limit the use of automated vehicle control systems to the conditions for which they were designed. In this case, a contributing factor to the crash was the automation was designed for limited access highways with no cross traffic. The vehicle automation system was not able to see objects that were stationary in the line of travel. So that included both stop vehicles, but also vehicles crossing at a right angle. And in this case, a big rig was crossing at a right angle, so it had no motion compared to the pavement in the direction towards or away from the car. So the car didn't see it and hit it, and the driver wasn't paying attention. What NTSB says is you should have those systems turn themselves off and be unable to operate in roads where you know from maps that there is cross traffic. But this system doesn't do that, and that contributed to the crash. The other thing they said was that the system should be good at sensing the driver's level of engagement. If the driver's not paying attention, the system should at least warn the driver and perhaps turn themselves off. So NTSB says that you need to limit the conditions of operation to the ones they were designed for, and you need to have the driver's level of engagement monitored back in 2016. To understand what's going on here, let's look at one way in which the issue of improving automation can interact with people having trouble paying attention to good automation. The vertical axis is safety, so up is good, up is more safe. And the horizontal axis is how long it is between malfunctions. The first thing to note is that all the active safety systems have been improving safety. Things like automatic emergency braking have been improving safety. So baseline human drivers in a 12 or 20-year-old car have a certain level, but if you add the features on new cars that are available that would be available with or without driving automation, you actually improve the safety quite a bit. So if you look at the national average, it's down at the human driver's level, but if you look at a new car average, it's actually quite a bit higher. The next thing we're going to do is we're going to look at automated driving capability and safety. If you just turn on the automation and close your eyes and ignore what's going on, which is a really bad idea today, what you'll find out is safety is pretty poor. Now, what we hope is that over time, automated driving gets better. So the horizontal axis is also over time. We hope it gets better, but right now it's not better. So right now, there's no way you should be turning on these systems and not paying attention to the road. So people are paying attention to the road. The issue is that as the system acts pretty well most of the time, if you've gone 10 miles, 100 miles, 1,000 miles, and the system has never made an error, it's going to be very difficult to pay attention. So the human driver attention goes down. And if you look at the combination of potential driving mistakes made by the automation and the fact that the human drivers are going to have trouble paying attention, what you get is a net overall driving safety that is likely to go down over time for a while before it goes back up. This part in the middle I call the valley of degraded supervision. What you have is an automated driving system so good that it almost never makes a mistake, but a driver who overtrusts it. And so when a mistake does happen, you get safety outcomes worse than a human driver without any of the active safety. Now, there's another thing we should note, that we don't actually know whether these systems will ever be better than a human driver with active safety. If you put in automated driving, is that better or worse than a human driver just supported by active safety, which is also getting better year by year? We don't know the answer to that. The jury's still out. Right now, it seems likely they could at least be close, but we don't know if it will actually be better. So the issue here is making sure that you design a human interaction strategy that keeps you out of the valley of degraded supervision and gets you at least as safe as an average human driver, even if you've degraded beyond the active safety a little bit. The story the industry tells for how they plan to do this is better driver monitoring. Driver monitoring technology might be a steering wheel touch sensor, it might be a face and gaze camera, which is considered a better practice than just steering wheel touch sensors. It could be hand position sensor, maybe with a camera. There are a lot of ways to go about this. The idea is that you only get safety with these systems if the human driver is paying attention and ready to intervene. And you need more than just whether someone's applying torque to a steering wheel, because maybe they're using a steering wheel weight, to really establish that. So if you want safety with this automated driving technology, you need to be monitoring the human and making sure they pay attention, because driver dropout is what humans do. It's human nature. It will happen. So you need driver monitoring as a countermeasure. There are some challenges here. It has to work in the dark. Some driver cameras have infrared sensors so they can illuminate the driver's face at night, and some don't. Some cameras work with sunglasses. Some don't. Some touch sensors work with gloves. Some don't. And so you need to address all these things if you want to have a driver monitoring system that really works all the time when people are driving. There's also intentional misuse and abuse. Some people will cover the camera to enable the feature, or they'll use a wheel weight. You can try and shame the drivers in saying, well, they shouldn't do that, but people are going to do it. This is what people do. And so if you want a system that is safe not only for the driver, but for the other road users, your system has to detect these kinds of abuse and prevent operation when this abuse is taking place. You also have a challenge of determining mental state from a person's external feature. People are remarkably good at learning to fool these systems. There's the saying, the lights are on, but nobody's home. You can have your eyes open and your mind can be wandering. And so how well these systems will be able to diagnose those states is unclear. It's still a developing technology. We certainly hope that a combination of driver monitoring and improved driving automation quality will get us to be safer than human drivers, but we still don't know how it turns out. And what if monitoring shows drivers are unable to remain attentive? Now what do we do? I think that driver monitoring might be the wrong term for this. What you really need is driver attention management. Telling a driver that they're not paying attention isn't really what you need. What you need is to find human-computer interfaces to make sure the driver is paying attention when they need to, and the driver monitoring, of course, can play a key role in that. The takeaway is that driver attention management is an open challenge. We hope that it will improve safety to make automated driving with human interaction safe, but we're still on the road to get there.